But you'll notice that everything in that song is about things of this world. So happiness must come from things of this world. Today we're saying yes to joy. Joy. Joy doesn't come from this world. My joy comes from my relationship with God. Period. That's my joy. My relationship with God, which can lead to the happiness. Because what he's singing about there is the appreciation of this world. And the only way to truly appreciate this is from my joy within my relationship with God. I read this from James, the book of James, and it said, it's the first chapter of James, and it says, "Count it all joy, my brethren, when you meet various trials. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness." Now, God does not test our faith. We test our faith. But it says, "And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives to all men generously and without reproaching, and it will be given him." Now, I'm going to read this from Dynamics for Living. It's the chapter on God. It's chapter 2. And it said, "The starting point in spiritual realization is a right understanding of God. By describing God with words in our human way, we are but stating in the lisping syllables of the child that which in its maturity the mind still only faintly grasps. Words never express that which God is. Language is the limitation of mind. Do not expect the unlimited to leap forth into full expression through the limited. We must drop the complex and find simplicity before we can know God. We must become as a child. God is in the bigness. God is in that which I cannot understand, which I don't understand, because it's just too darn big. My relationship with God, it started so many years ago. As a little boy, I was taken to the Church of Christ, which is a fundamentalist church. I didn't know that at the time. I didn't have words like that. What I knew is it took me past "now I lay me down to sleep." I became rather judgmental with it, and not righteous judgment, let me tell you. And I was still fearful of God. That God was like the police or Santa Claus in the corner, waiting to catch me doing something. And I did a lot of stuff to be caught. But I got some sort of essence that I was loved by something that I didn't understand. And then as I got older, I had to put that I would only pray really so I could fall asleep at night. And then when I was about 28, I had had enough, at least I thought I had had enough, just for that moment I'd had enough, of the life I was living. And I remember praying that night, "God, I need help. I can't do it alone anymore." And I remember still thinking, I think I'm doing it alone. I think I'm doing it all alone. A lot of us, I think, feel that way, that, I've got to make this decision, I've got to do this, and I've got to do this, I've got to do this. And we're looking for a person to do it, rather than life within us. Rather than developing that joyful relationship of the highest power within us that allows us divine understanding, that allows us a peace, discernment, that really creates discernment within us. But with that, I was led to the next day. I went into work and I asked a friend of mine for help. A friend of mine who was headed under the 12-step program, and I had asked him. I said, "I'm going to go with you." He said, "Yes." So I went the next day with him. I admitted my problem, and I went from there. And for 5 months, I was pretty much turning it over until I decided, you know what, it's pretty good now. I think I'll do it my way. I stopped asking for help. I stopped telling people what I was going to do. And the real story is I was going to Las Vegas for the first time. I was going to meet my father for the first time since I was 4. I was 28 years old. And I'm sure that played a lot into it, but I think more it was my egoic. I was going to Las Vegas, and I was going to be a big shot. And you know what they do in Las Vegas? They serve you free drinks. Well, I couldn't pass up a bargain like that. I lost $50 one day waiting for a free drink. But I remember that first night, and I remember thinking, and I ordered my drink, and I remember thinking, you still have a choice, Shawn. And then I drank it, and I didn't have a choice anymore. See, that's always the case. I had a choice, and then I didn't have a choice anymore. And then I became a sneak again, and a liar, and all sorts of things. And it took 3.5 years, and a strong desire for either life or suicide. And I chose life. Again, I remember consciously choosing, I'm going to choose life and see how it works. And I will do whatever it takes, whatever is suggested. And I began. And the first thing I heard from these people when I went back to this room, what I've talked about, I don't know if I've talked about it here, but I have an invisible tool chest. And it's got lots of drawers in it. And when I went back into those different rooms, as I said, with those stupid alcoholics, and I remember I sat in the back because I wasn't staying. I was only going to be there long enough. But you know, my first day there, my tool chest appeared in the chair beside me, and a drawer opened and said, "Sit in the front. You get more out of the front. Sit in the front." And I said, "But I'm not staying." And I closed the drawer. And but I stayed. And I came back the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And I remember I had about 17 days, and this guy, 16 days, and this guy was sitting in the front by them. And this guy said, you know, we have different meetings here every day at lunchtime. We've got this meeting in this room. We've got a beginner's meeting in the kitchen. And down the hall, there's a step meeting. And he looked at me, though, when he said, we have a beginner's meeting. The next day, I was in that step meeting. I couldn't bear to be a beginner. That was too, my ego couldn't bear that. But I wanted to be with the big boys. I wanted to play with the big boys. I wanted to play with the people who were successful at this. I wanted to play with the people who were prospering and living really well as a result of this. I didn't want to sit back and be passive. I didn't want to sit back and just be taken care of and felt sorry. Oh, you poor thing. Oh, look, they're having such a struggle getting through it. I wanted my picture on the wall with Bill and Bob, is what I wanted. But in that egoic desire, I had to learn how to work a program. And I had to do it through the fellowship. See, it wasn't just going by myself and reading a book. I had to work with other people, which meant I had to come out and face my embarrassment at being me. My total humiliation at being me. And that was an unfolding process. But one of the things those people did is they told me to get down on your knees and pray. Now in Unity, have you ever seen us get down on our knees and pray in a Unity church? No. Not at least not a Unity church I've ever been to. But I got down, but I had never been to a Unity church at that point. And I had never prayed on my knees in my life because we didn't do that in Church of Christ. Certainly didn't do it in the Presbyterian church I was in as a kid. And but I got down on my knees and I prayed. And what it did for me was it really developed my relationship with God. It didn't mean I was worshiping God. What it meant was I was focused. I knew what my function was when I got on my knees at the side of my bed. I had no function except to deepen my relationship with God. And it worked. Overnight, my life changed radically. Because I did what these alcoholics suggested I do. And I remember, and I thought, oh, my goodness, it's all working, it's all working, it's all working. One day, I wanted to drink. I had 90-some days at that point. Maybe 6 months even, I don't know. But I thought if you wanted to drink, you were doing something wrong. I didn't know that was normal for an alcoholic to want to drink. I really didn't. But I thought, you know, these other people, they're not working the program like I am. They're not doing it right. And all of a sudden I wanted to. Well, I went to this woman, who had about 1,000 years of sobriety, at the meeting. And she used to sing and crochet and rock, and she had all sorts of wisdom in her. So I went over to her one night at the midnight meeting, and I whispered to her, and I said, I really want to drink. And she said, of course you do! You're an alcoholic!
Lane stretch.
No. break anybody.
She does. She does.
That's true. You did a whole Broadway show about it, but no, it wasn't her. I didn't meet her for several years. But this woman, what she did for me is I realized I'm one amongst many. I wasn't separate in the room anymore. I wasn't special in the room anymore, which is the greatest thing that could have happened for me. When I wasn't Shawn walking into the room who's different than these other people, I just became an alcoholic amongst alcoholics. So I always thought I want to be the best or the worst. I want that specialness. But there's no joy in specialness. There can be happiness in it, but no joy in specialness. There's just separation. And there's not a relationship with God. Because, you see, the relationship with God is not a private relationship. It is a very public relationship. And it doesn't mean you're screaming about your relationship with God. It means you're practicing it. It means you're seeing God in everybody. It means you're willing to see past the upset. Willing to see past what looks so different amongst each of us. I may still choose to walk away from a relationship, but I'm not walking away from their God selves. I'm walking away because my ego can't take, is not willing to separate, is only willing to keep us separate right now. So sometimes it's better to walk away. I don't have as many people that I walk away from as I used to, because I'm not as afraid. As I developed my relationship with God, I developed my relationship with you guys. And when I say you guys, I mean the world at large. And I still sometimes retreat. But overall, so I got down on my knees and I prayed a day after day, several times a day. I surrendered to God. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew God knew what it meant. And then I began to develop an even greater relationship with God, one that didn't have words anymore. When my mother died, all of a sudden, I had no words. I saw my mother in the casket, and it's like, this is too big. This is just too darn big. This must be what God is. I can't describe this. I don't know. I can't. All I can do is be present in it. I'll just be present over here. And I'll be present over here. And I'll be present over here. Hi, how are you? Hi, you know, whatever. Cry, laugh. Whatever, I'll just be present and I'll take in the bigness. At the theater the other night, a very good friend of ours is down there, and his parents have just moved in with he and his partner. His father, they're hoping he lasts 2 more weeks. And his mother, maybe a couple of months. They're both quite ill. And I said to him, pay attention to every detail. This is such a blessing that you are here at this moment. Observe every bit of it. Observe all the gifts and all of the bigness. Pay attention to all of it. This is a great big life experience. Take the gifts where they come. And some of us are so afraid of what's going to happen in 2 weeks that we're not appreciating right now. And right now. And right now, and observing and being present and saying, thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you, God. And what's more, saying thank you to yourself. At night now, when I go to sleep, and I thank God, but I also thank Shawn. I say, thank you, Shawn, for being willing to experience today, however you experienced it. Start thanking yourself for the choices you have made today. Whether you like the choices or not, start thanking yourself, because they have to be in divine order. This is how your relationship of joy is going to evolve into every aspect. Every aspect. There won't be any place you won't be able to find joy. Now, we're not talking about elation here. We're talking about joy. Give thanks for every time you realize there's more bigness or something you don't understand. Give thanks. For 6 months after my mother died, I had no short-term memory. And it's like, I'd walk away from a conversation, I had no idea what we had just talked about. And I didn't care. And before that, it really would have rankled me. I used to remember every detail of everything. And I realized, oh, Mother's gone. I don't have to. I don't have to keep the world safe anymore, like I used to imagine I did. I am safe already. I am safe just as I am. Because I have developed my relationship with God. I have built a foundation, a very strong foundation, and I recommend you do that at whatever point you're at right now. And maybe you have a really strong foundation. Observe it though. Look to see any cracks anywhere. So it's that way when the wind blows and the rain falls and he huffs and he puffs. Your house will not topple. It may blow. It may get wet and snowy and cold, but it's still firmly founded in the joy of God. G-O-D. Which, the joy of God is the joy of self. Are we clear on that? The joy of God is the joy of self. Imagine that you were never, ever out of joy with yourself. You'd have to lay aside all your personality to do that, I think. Or just accept it. That, well, this is where my personality is now. But there is joy in my gut. There is joy in my heart. There is joy in my mind. There is joy in this relationship and this relationship and this one and this one. Even the ones I'm struggling with, there's joy here because it cannot be. Because I've got a joy of self. It is good to be me. In the 12 powers, Charles Fillmore established the back of the brain right here, just the top of the neck, as the power of zeal. Its color is orange. The power of zeal it's our enthusiasm power. It's about choosing life and choosing it more abundantly. As Charles Fillmore said at 93, today I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm, and I spring forth with a mighty faith to do that which ought to be done by me.
There you with me.
Yeah. Zeal. It is your ability to know that your life is good no matter what's going on. Nobody else could be living your life, and you could not be living anyone else's. Your life is good. My life is good. I have experienced pain, I experienced heartache, I experienced knots in my stomach, and my life is still good. I'm still frightened. The only reason for that is because I'm still confused. I'm still choosing confusion instead of surety. Choose joy. Choose love. Choose peace. You already have them. You're not choosing to get them. You're choosing to acknowledge them all the time. And you can have it all. That's why I said with my mother's funeral, it's like, holy smokes. I'm having a great time. Through my tears, through everything, I was having a great time because I knew the presence of God was so present that I couldn't mistake this experience as anything less than a God one. It was just too big. Too big. Too big. Scott has a song here. We've done it before. Let's do it. I've got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart. Got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart. Down in my heart to stay. Sing. I got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart. I got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart. Down in my heart to stay. And I'm so happy, so very happy. I got the joyful feeling in my heart. And I'm so happy, so very happy. I got the joyful feeling in my heart. Let's do it again. I got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart. I got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart. Down in my heart to stay. And I'm so happy, so very happy.
heart. I've got that joy, 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 joy down in my heart. Down in my heart to stay. And I'm so happy, so very happy. I got the joyful feeling in my heart.